Good afternoon, and welcome to today's live broadcast of Speaking the Truth About Money with Martin Coward and Joy the Wise Woman. I am both Martin Coward and Joy the Wise Woman. Martin Coward is my human name, and Joy the Wise Woman is my spiritual name. And we're here to speak the truth about the world and also about our relationship to money, because money often is a barrier to our heart space because we have a false belief of not having enough. And when we're in heart space, we know that we have everything we ever needed. We were born with everything we needed, all the answers, all the resources. We're born with that unconditional love energy right here within our very own hearts. And our job, our joy, particularly with my guest today, Mindy Gibbins-Klein, is to talk a little bit about how we become aware of this heart space and how we bring that into our mission in the world to change the world to a better place, one that's more aligned with our mission, our heart's mission, our soul's purpose. So today I'm so excited that Mindy Gibbins-Klein, a multi-award winning international speaker and coach, is going to be teaching us how to share our personal story in a way that educates, inspires, entertains, and builds our brand. So don't miss this golden opportunity right now to learn the secrets that Mindy has to teach us. Mindy, please welcome to our show.
It is really great to be here. Thank you, Martin. Joy.
Oh, I'm so glad you came. I was so excited when we met a few weeks ago on that boiling hot day. And we made this decision from that conversation that you just had to come on and be a guest on my show and talk about all the wonderful things you're doing, particularly in the world of helping people leave their legacy through sharing their personal stories. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this space and how you got into your mission, and tell us a little bit about your story, how you became this inspiring coach and teacher.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that and for the invitation. I was in my 20s and was spending a lot of time in the American Southwest, not too far from you. And a good friend of mine fell down a flight of stairs at a client site and hit his head very hard at the bottom. And he didn't die, but he developed epilepsy. And we were all in our 20s. Nobody knew how to handle that. A lot of things happened in the next year or two. And he had medications, side effects. Everybody was saying, you should sue the company where it happened. There was a lot of stress. He had an accident at work. He ended up getting laid off. I mean, unbelievable story. And I can only speak for myself, but I really felt powerless to help. And I watched all this unfold. And then he took his own life. And I really kind of collapsed because I thought, could I have done more? Should I have done more? It's very complicated. And then people started piling in saying, oh, it's a sin to take your life. And the overriding thought, Martin, was just, how do you know what he was going through? And we're so quick to judge people, aren't we? That's another whole episode. But what I did was I channeled it eventually into something positive. And it was really hard for me. I love writing, but I didn't trust myself to write his story, so I made it fiction. And I did a lot of rewrites and a lot of self-doubt and a lot of introspection. And it took me 10 years to get my first book out. I'll show you the current edition, A Dance in the Desert, because it does take place in the Arizona desert. And half the proceeds still go to epilepsy charities because, I thought that was part of my mission. Turns out my mission was to help other people who had an important story or message to share and weren't doing it. Turns out that all the 10 years of struggle and doubting myself, beating myself up, crying, receiving rejection letters, feeling worthless, listening to people who did not know about my story, my mission, and my tenacity, but allowing them to almost stop me from achieving that. And I set up the Book Midwife almost immediately after that. It's coming up to 20 years now. And most people won't write the book they want to write. They won't get on a stage and tell their story. They won't even do videos like this because they're scared. And they don't need to be, because when it's important, when
Hmm.
you've got something that's so, so important to help people to, share what you've been through, actually touches another heart. You know this, and I think a lot of the viewers know this. That is what drives you, and that's what drives me. So anytime I think, oh, my business, whatever, I do go into that heart space, and I just connect with all those people who are at risk of going to their grave with their book or their message still inside.
Wow, that is a beautiful story, and I can't help but think about the words of Brene Brown when she says, "The bravest thing anyone will ever." I just got chills when I say it, because it shows out to me is the bravest thing anyone will ever do is to share their story, and the power of that, because we feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
We feel vulnerable that we're going to be judged. But what we discover is that people really love us when we have that kind of courage to share our story, because it gives them the courage to share their story. So I love what you're doing. And let me ask you a quick question on that. So we just touched on the thing that people are too afraid, and we know that. And so what would be the first, what's one thing that someone who knows they've got a story but they're just too afraid to make even the first attempt, what's the one thing that they could do that would maybe help to open up their heart a little bit, to know they've got a powerful story to tell?
Yeah.
And how do you go about it? What's the first step they could take?
Well, it might sound oversimplistic, but I like simplifying things. So I would say, when you're in fear, you are going internal. You're focused on yourself and those fears of rejection, fear of failure. So the first thing that I would recommend is find a way to focus externally. And the best way to do that is to get a piece of paper out, or phone if you're a youngster, and put down two or three or more, but at least two or three things that could happen or that you could make happen if you did share that story. Now, I talk about doing a TEDx talk, writing a book, big things. I've only done one TEDx talk, but I've written 13 books. And every single time I have to get the focus off myself. Otherwise, I'll never do it. I'll be like, oh, what if they don't buy it? What if they buy it and they don't read it? What if they read it and they don't like it? And the minute you focus on the people you're going to help, that all goes away. I mean, it doesn't mean you definitely do it, but it does take away a lot of the fear. So that's the first thing I'd recommend.
Yeah, I love that. And you bring up a very good point. And I think it's a lot to do with our culture here in the United States, in America. And that is what I call it, our somewhat narcissistic culture of what's in it for me. So what I'm hearing is that if you're thinking, I got to write this book, well, what's in it for me, and will people like it, accept it? That mindset is what's going to stand in your way. That, and if you shift your mindset to say, well, first, if I write this story, what's going to be in it for other people first? What value am I going to add to the world by me having the courage to share my story with them? And you're saying to take the focus off what's going to happen to me and say what would be the value to the people who would get to read the story. And that and the physical way to do it is just to get out a journal and start writing down those things. What would be the value of me sharing this story with the world?
Yes, and we never know. So it's counterintuitive, because all of my work is about helping people create frameworks, structures, outlines, plans, encouragement, coaching, guidelines, and to get things done. But when you put something out into the world, be it a book, a talk, a video, even this interview, we have no idea who it will touch, if it will touch any lives. So you have to have faith, which I know you and I and the viewers have. You have to be willing to put it out there and just let go, and the outcome will be what the outcome will be. I will share a very, very quick example of that, because it was very scary sharing my friend's story, and I fictionalized a lot, but you can still find me in the book. But there, I joined the epilepsy charity here in the UK, and I was doing a lot of work with them. And somebody bought the book who had epilepsy, and he shared with me that he has had suicidal thoughts. And it's not that my book saved his life. I'm not, going to make some grandiose claim like that. However, he said it was really helpful, and he read it 3 times and he felt he was not alone. And that's just one person giving me one bit of feedback on one of my books. And I feel I've done something good in the world.
Well, you have saved somebody's life. It's not grandiose. He told you it's, who knows? He's still living. So therefore he read your book and he's had suicidal thoughts and he's alive today. At least he hasn't committed suicide from the story. And you did save his life. And when and I would even say you brought him back to life spiritually because you gave him hope. He wasn't alone. And that's the value of sharing our story, is that people don't feel alone, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, loneliness is pervasive. It's an epidemic. It can creep up on you. I mean, I've been working from home for 20 years. So a lot of people just started working from home 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's nobody around and it's just you and your thoughts, and you can kind of spiral, well, you can spiral down or you can spiral up. But for the people who don't have the resources and haven't got the experience, and they forget that there's always a network, there's always a community, that there are always other people, you can feel alone, but you're not alone.
Yeah, I mean, even in your own story, there was when you did the book and you joined a group of people who are like-minded, who understood epilepsy. So you asked for help, and you asked for a community of people who would understand you and understand your need, to inspire and encourage you to be vulnerable and share this story the way you did. And that's another thing I would suggest. Don't try to do it alone. Ask for help.
Well, we have lots of courses and help available if people feel they want support to plan and write their books. I mean, that most people who want to write a book never do it. And as I said before, that's just so sad, that they don't find a way to get out of the fear, or they're overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. So, that's why I do what I do. Funny enough, the book that changed my business trajectory was this one, 24 karat bold. So it's got some nice gold. Not all the books come with the gold letters, but I was trying 14 years ago when that came out to encourage people to be bolder. But the issue is, thank you, Jeffrey. That's wonderful. People can be too bold. I won't get into all of that here. So there's a spectrum. There's a kind of line, and you need to decide, how are you being bold enough? Are you at risk of offending someone because you want to be bold yet respectful? And so all of this goes into the mixing bowl, when you're creating something written or spoken.
I love that, because bold can quickly become all about me, can't it?
Yeah.
And that's not what we're talking about. We're saying be boldly vulnerable. Be bold with the truth about your story.
Yeah.
And that's how I haven't read your book, but I am definitely going to read it, because that's exactly the kind of stuff I enjoy reading about and talking about on the show. And I just want to go back to something. This show we're doing now, I started this show actually during the pandemic, and it was a noonday power hour to meditation time for people during the pandemic to combat loneliness. And I got people all over the world who would come in every day at noon and just meditate with me. And I did a little touring. And then when the pandemic was over, I didn't feel a real need for that. I made a transition to create this show called Speaking the Truth About Money with Martin Coward. And I did it a year ago in June during Pride. And I changed the whole format. Today, I feel very comfortable with Joy the Wise Woman and everything that we're doing. But I got to say, it felt very vulnerable to me. I felt very exposed when I came out during Pride Week, really coming out as an advocate for LGBTQ rights, and using a feminine name as my spiritual name. And it felt very vulnerable, but it was my truth. And so that's what, to me, what bold was. I felt like it was a bold action that was required of me to get my message out and create this platform for us to have these conversations. But I got to tell you, when I first did it, I felt very, very vulnerable. That's where I really leaned into that quote by Brene Brown, because she's the queen of vulnerability, as you know.
Yeah.
And I still watch her TED talk on vulnerability whenever I'm going to give a speech, because it inspires me on exactly how to give a speech, what to say, and what to do. And so I just want to let you talk a little bit about bold and vulnerability, and get your comments on that aspect of this conversation, and this idea of being bold and sharing our story.
Well, so there's that aspect of being bold, and some people need to speak up. They have wisdom that they're not sharing. So it's about sharing stories, but also when you've been through something, that experience can give you insights, not always, but if you're paying attention, you can pull the insights, and that develops what I call wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's a choice as well, to share or not, because sometimes these are very big ideas and not everybody is supportive. When you share, there are the people who will say, well, no, they'll just want to debate with you, or worse, we've got the haters who've also come out of the closet. And I don't want somebody to be put off thinking I'm going to get shot down. And so there's a way to go about it. And this brought out my latest flagship book. I have all my books here, The Thoughtful Leader. And the purpose of that is to be bold, but do it thoughtfully, to figure out what you're going to share, how you're going to share it. And you did that with this show, Martin. You put some thought into it. You felt vulnerable, and you took the time to craft it and listen and reflect on how the episodes went, and let it grow organically and tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is valuable. And to keep showing up and saying, I don't have all the answers, but you know what? The thoughtful leader approaches every bit of communication and every project and their life thoughtfully. That's really the biggest choice that we have. When you sit and you're thoughtful, is it time to share your story? Is it time to share your wisdom? How are you going to do it? And that is my sweet spot. That's where I love to play, help people figure it out. Occasionally I'll talk to people and we'll even have a session, and they don't want to, go further, write a book, whatever, but at least they've explored it. And that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting. I had a real passion to do a TEDx talk a while back. I thought, because I'm a public speaker, and before COVID, I really wanted to do a TEDx talk, and I took a fairly expensive coaching class to learn how to do it. And halfway through it, about 3/4 through it, I got involved with my project in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject that I was going to talk about was no longer relevant to me.
Right.
But I at least was making the effort. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to come back to my TEDx talk. But right now, the story where I need to be focusing my energy is on saving the lives of about 1,000 LGBTQ asylum Africans who are living in a camp in some pretty difficult conditions in Kankama. And that's going to be the story I'm going to talk about on TEDx, is what I'm doing there. So why I'm telling this story is what you said was, the time may not be right. If you have that conversation with you, at least you can explore the idea and see, what's in your way, and you get to choose when the time is right to tell your story. And
yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say is, at least explore it with someone like you to see if it's fear standing in your way,
right,
or is it, the time is not right. And
yeah. And I'm always happy to have a chat. That's my favorite thing to do, is this, I'll have a chat with anyone as long as it's scheduled in my calendar. And actually some impromptu chats that come through on my phone. But the thing is, you said, is it time to share your story? We have multiple stories.
Yeah.
So, a very, very talented coach who was putting together the TEDx event that I spoke at, he stopped me because I was pitching, some leadership thing. And yes, I can talk about leadership. And he said, would you be willing to share your other story, your personal story, and which is partly how you and I got connected, and because it has an LGBTQ plus aspect to it. And I said, whoa, I wasn't thinking about sharing that story. And I decided to do it. And, the
Yeah.
rest is history.
Yeah. But the thing is just, is making a decision and choosing what to do, You need to get
Absolutely.
some water, dear.
No, I'm too far from the water. We're good.
Well, we can take a break and get you some water. I don't want you
Nope.
to. Okay.
I'll just mute if I have to cough.
We're live, and we
I know.
we got to take care of each other, so it's all good. I've had that happen to me before, so it's okay. Just want to check in with you, but
Good. Thank you.
I love the way this conversation is going, because it's really about speaking to people and asking for some help. So if you've got what I want to just sum this up, it sounds like to me, and you can add this too, is like, if you've got if you're alive today and you've had some experiences, you got a story to tell. And it's important, because you know what, and particularly if you've got a story to tell. So I would encourage you to just reach out to Mindy and say, I've got a story to tell, and talk to her about it, because from the short time that I've gotten to know her, she's going to encourage you on some things. Well, if you got a story to tell, here are some things you can do to start getting ready. You don't have to go right out of the box that day and think, I got a story to tell. You might say, well, maybe you should do that by writing some blogs. Maybe you could do it by doing a live show like this. There's a lot of ways to share your story. And for someone, an experienced coach like Mindy, she's going to be able to help you find, well, when is the right time? How do I get started? How do I begin to get through the fear of sharing my story? It may not be writing your book, but it might be writing a blog, or it might be going live once a week on Facebook and just talking, all kinds of ways. So why don't you pick that up, Mindy, and see what you want to say about just getting started, because that's often where people are stuck. The hardest, for me, sometimes going to the gym, the hardest part is getting out in the car and getting in the car to go to the gym.
I'm going to just tweak that. When you were role playing there, of somebody contacting me and saying, I have a story. Let's just take it down a notch.
Okay.
And let's make it a lot easier for everybody, including ourselves.
Yeah.
I prefer something like, I think I may have a story.
Yeah.
Right? Because it takes that pressure off. I have it. Part of my job is to start pulling on those threads and help people figure out
lovely
what they're going to share.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be the first thing. Let's just take the pressure off ourselves. Right. As you know about me, and as people will be starting to figure out, I hardly ever stop smiling. I'm very smiley. So I hope that viewers will be doing this at home, but smile. I've got a dimple here. I don't know if everybody has dimples, but enjoy this process, as we say here, process in the States, of exploring and discovering, because you cannot speak your truth until you discover your truth. And that people get it mixed up. They start planning, something, writing, I'm going to be a public speaker. And I say, great, what are you going to speak about? I don't know. It's like cart before the horse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's, oh my gosh.
The whole litany of questions there.
I know there's that's something to be writing about. I don't know if it's Kalaloo or Kalalu, but I'd be very happy to explore that with you, because that is a topic. That's a topic and a half. And so we don't make any judgments. I really aim not to be judgmental, which is surprising, because people think that I'm here to tell them if their story idea is a good one or not. And I say, I won't use the words good or bad. Is it worth? No, I won't tell you. Will it do well? Who knows? And all these kinds of things that people want me to almost play God. And instead, all I want to do is part the curtains, open the door, help people do what they could do on their own. But there's so many different things that we never see. unless we take that time and are thoughtful. And so really, but yeah, that those fascinating questions about what is LGBTQ, what is sexual orientation. I would love to help somebody figure out what it is they believe about that, what they want to share, which aspects of their story they want to pull out, because what's going to be in the book or the talk or the blog and what's going to be left out. You see me getting excited.
Yeah, and I'm getting excited too, because there's someone right now who's really who's committed to helping to liberate and turn Africa into the most welcoming place for LGBTQ people. I would highly recommend that this guy get in touch with you and talk about the book that's inside there.
Book book is a metaphor. Book,
whatever,
radio show, whatever they want to do with it,
to get that story out, because that's a story that needs to get heard.
Yeah,
because that's what's going to liberate the African people. Because I know at the heart of African people, there's a huge heart.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't learn to become homophobic until white people went there and taught them this nonsense. Quite frankly,
yeah,
it was taught to them by the white people who came and took over their country and stole their children and into slavery and told them it was wrong to be gay because that was a Christian white God. That is all a bunch of lies. Number one, and at the heart of the African people is love, the same as in everybody else. And that has been showing up in so many ways as I've gotten to know and work with the queer African community. So I would encourage you to, Khalid, to just reach out to Mindy as soon as you can and talk to her about what you're thinking. And there may be, you're right, it may not be a book. It might just be a blog. It might be going live. It might be creating your own podcast, your own live show like this. There are whole ways that you can get this message out and help to create some transformation in Africa. And I would love the help.
The piece that comes before all of that, writing, sharing, posting, is getting clarity on the story, the message. As I say, what's going to be in, what's going to be left out, what's the angle, what do you feel comfortable sharing? Because we don't have to share every aspect of ourselves, our lives, all of our fears and insecurities. We don't have to open the kimono and let it all hang out, as it were. So there's probably a discussion about, what the message is. And, that's what inspires me, because from the same experience, you can have lots of different insights or messages.
Exactly. I mean, there's certainly parts of all of our lives that we don't need to share with the world because it's nobody else's business. And,
please don't.
and that's taking that word bold to another, because then you're making it about you. You're telling people stories about yourself that are really not necessarily going to inspire and motivate them to their own greatness. They're going to compare themselves to you, and that's not what we want to do. We want to tell people stories that are inspiring about our own transformational journey and change in the world, and how we've struggled to live our truth, really. And that's what a good story is about. I call it, every story is a hero's journey story of two sides. There's the external story, and then there's the internal story that changes our lives. And so I think that having a conversation with you, Mindy, certainly like today, will enlighten this young man in some ideas. And I bet you, if he talks to you, he's going to be doing, I don't know what he's going to be doing, but he's going to be doing something that's going to help shape Africa's future in the way that LGBTQ people are treated in that continent.
Yeah, well, so, I'm here. I'm here, and I'm online. And reach out to me. I know I have a long last name, but I am the only Mindy Gibbins-Klein on the internet. So LinkedIn.
Well, there you go. And that was my next question, because we're getting up on that half hour, and I know that you've got another meeting exactly sharp when this 30 minutes is over. So before we do that, I want you just to clearly tell people know the easiest, quickest way for people to get in touch with you. Let this guy know, Kalalua. I don't think I got your name right, but I'm so sorry for messing it up. But I do want to give Mindy some time to just tell us how you can get in touch with her and have a conversation with her and get started with your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I always joke and say, Google my name, and you'll get thousands of my articles and videos, and you'll probably be overwhelmed. So if you just want to connect and send me a message, LinkedIn is probably best. And I spell my name just like that, like you see on the screen. And if you can't find me, go back to Martin. He'll connect us.
I will definitely help you get connected to Mindy, because I'm so glad that I'm connected. I'm so glad she's on our show today. So you just go out to Mindy Gibbins-Klein. That's Mindy, and then a hyphenated name. This is for people on the podcast later. Gibbins hyphenated Klein, Klein, Mindy Gibbins-Klein. Google her, go to LinkedIn, and reach out to Mindy to have a conversation. So before we close out, I want to give a shout out for something we're doing over here in Financial Heart Space. Two things that I want to make you aware of. One of them is we have a Facebook group called Financial Heart Space for LGBTQ plus meaning our allies like Mindy, for business leaders and change agents. Come over there, and it's a private community for us to love and support each other in living lives of purpose and meaning. So please, it's an invitation. That's a Facebook group called Financial Heart Space for LGBTQ plus business leaders and change agents. The other thing I want to tell you about that we're having a lot of success with, every Thursday at 4:00, and you can see this posted everywhere. We're doing we're hosting an LGBTQ marketing event and business exchange for you to come in and talk about what you do, why you do it, what value you add, and how to purchase your product. We are a business. We want to promote internet commerce. We're not afraid of it. Come in and do it the right way. Come in and tell us who you are, why you do what you do. You'll share your story. You'll talk about the value your products and services, your thing brings to the world. That's what everybody wants to know when they're going to purchase your services. And finally, we're going to give you a chance to tell people exactly where to go to purchase it, because we want to help you get some money in your doors. We want to help you make August from being a sluggish month to being your most productive month of the year. So please, those are two ways that we want to support our community, the LGBTQ plus community, in living lives of transformation and change. So please join us over there. In the meantime, Mindy, thank you so much for joining us today. May love and prosperity continue to prevail across the planet.